Welcome to the Theory of DFS podcast. I'm Jordan Cooper, the co-author of The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass at theoryofdfs.com. Joining me this week, he's back. The season has started. He's back. I don't know if that's a good thing for people. That people enjoyed all the interviews, a lot of them long, that I've done since you've been focusing on all of your best ball tweets. And from your tweets, Eric, some people have said, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, that you've been blenderized.
I think that is probably a pretty fair assessment. It's just the easiest way to get points across, right? And I only have so many characters on Twitter, and it also triggers some people, which is always good for engagement. So I'm trying to be a nicer human. I'm trying to be friendly. I'm trying to be all that, but you have to kind of toe the line if you want to get the engagement on your tweets and stuff. So telling people all the research they did all summer really doesn't fucking matter, really gets the people upset, but you're not saying anything too mean. So I am trying to be a blend between me and you, I guess.
Right. I could condense it down to just play whoever you want. And just like what do you mean play whoever you want? Well, like that's kind of whatever. That's kind of what it is. You have to take more of a nihilistic approach to especially small sample sizes when it comes to NFL. And for this first week, Eric, because obviously for people that have not tuned in since last season, this show is primarily, but most people think it's an interview show. It's a show between me and you as sharp DFS players talking about our strategic decisions. Just so happens that you get involved with other things and you're gone for a while, and I want to still do the show, so people come on. But entering this first week of the season, so many people have said the first week we don't know shit, right? We do not know shit. People will study the preseason and think they could find something out from there. But of course, this is when teams work on stuff, right? It doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily play that way in the regular season. Did you take more of an approach? How far away from we don't know shit to well, you got to know some shit in order to build lineups? I think we could both say that the approach, probably the sharper approach to take this past slate was to almost like look at these 3K wide receivers and go, don't act either one of two things. Don't act like like that they're actually going to get the work. And number two, even if they do, if they put up 12 points, it may not even matter.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing kind of as the week played out. Like when I first opened it up, and you had super early ownership projections on Roto Grinders, and some of those guys weren't looking to be super popular. And then just kind of as the week plays out and everybody sees how you can build lineups, it was very, very clear how everyone was going to build and how much they were going to gravitate towards those 3K wide receivers. So that was, I know anybody that hasn't listened, but I play mostly 1 to 3 lineups or something. I played 3 lineups yesterday, and Sunday, whatever. I played 3 lineups in week 1. And yeah, pretty much X'd out all those guys. And I actually didn't play Christian McCaffrey either. So I was kind of living in this mid range. And that was kind of the clearest path, I thought. And what really I thought was kind of an interesting part of that. And I talked to Ben Gretsch, who I'm doing a Sunday morning show on Roto Grinders now with. We kind of talked about it. Like if you really take a step back and think about for tournament and upside on week 1, like you could, to use your phrase, play whoever you wanted, even if you lived like in that mid tier. Like there was no real salary cap constraints, even if, do you want Travis Kelce? Do you want Tyreek Hill? Even then you didn't even have to go to those $3,000 wide receivers, but everybody did that. And then, jammed McCaffrey, Kamara, Dalvin Cook. And so I just thought it was so blatantly clear that like if you lived, and now I didn't hit on the right guys, obviously,
right? Because you could get the right construction, you just still need the right guys. Like for instance, I was focused more on the mid-range running backs.
Yeah.
The problem came in. It was a weird dynamic before lock. It surprised me more than anything else. and I discussed this on the pregame show with James on Monday, that typically any late news, especially on Sunday, is not reacted to anywhere near as much as anything that we find out Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever.
Yep.
I originally had in the milli I'm talking about, because that's what most ownership projections are, 7 to 10% from Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
That's what I had. Like, I going into it, and I didn't think he didn't project well, but also all the projections had Trey Sermon in sharing, in 20, 25%, 30% of the work for Shanahan, who is known for rotating his running backs as it is. And then Mike Davis projected decently well already. And then Gallman was inactive and Sermon were inactive, and it kind of bumped these guys up further. Like if you went to updated projections, Davis got extra points, Mostert got extra points, but not to that much extent as you would think.
Yeah.
I was shocked to see opening up the DraftKings app and see Raheem Mostert as one of the highest owned running backs on the slate. And if we look at the game changer, which I wasn't even able to get in. The contest filled too quickly.
They filled so early.
Right. I was like, okay, I have to decide whether or not I'm going to play the game changer. I played 8 single entry 3 max lineups. Okay, and then I played my whole large field builds. That's still separate. But like the game changer lineup, I would have played. I don't think I would have gotten there. Was Russell Wilson? I would have overstacked that game. Russell Wilson, Metcalf, Lockett, Everett, Pittman, and then found a way to play Mike Davis with Devontae Smith. Like to have a mid-range running back paired with an opposing wide receiver, and then probably end up on Raheem Mostert in the second running back slot. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that construction would have actually gotten there, but I was focusing more on on the mid-range running backs only because the construction was barbelled. So I believe that if I stayed away from the 3K wide receivers, if I stayed away from the non-Derrick Henry high-end running backs, that like in order to play like one, you could play one of the two. If you wanted to play a 3K wide receiver, level wide receiver, one high-end running back, you could still make a fairly balanced build with the rest of your lineup. Mm-hmm. But once you put in two, you're being led to all like you're being led to 2v2s rather than 5v5s. And I kind of lived in that zone, kind of staying away from the constructions that needed those two. So I landed on more Mixon. The problem with Mixon is that I typically had Justin Jefferson across from him and not Adam Thielen. And my Tyler Lockett's and DK Metcalf's had Pittman or Paris Campbell on the other side and not Zach Pascal, even though I'd still had some Zach Pascal. But like I still had in my large field some Callaway, some Elijah Moore, some of those guys, but way under. But they fit in line. If you looked at the lineups, they fit in lineups where, like, you could play Callaway in that lineup. And I'm playing Callaway. I played a lot of Aaron Jones, living in that mid range, $6,800 running back. I'm like, how do I play Callaway or any of the Saints in a lineup that makes me more? Because I think Callaway Adams, that combination would be used. So I'm like, let me fill in these mid-range running backs. Obviously, that game didn't get there. But you mentioned, I wanted to have a small conversation. Listening to you on the Sunday morning show with Gretch was different. Like, it's weird. I listened to Adam, Ship My Money, because that Awesome Mode, they do a show at 9 in the morning. Okay, so I typically tune into that because Roto Grinders doesn't start until 10:30. So I like hearing Josh and Adam talk about the slate, and then I hear you guys talk about it at 11:30. You both had different opinions that were both right, and I lean more on the side of Adam. So like what you said on your show was Kyle Pitts was the easiest place to get leverage, right? Just like he's going to be probably the highest known player on the slate. He's 4,400 at tight end, and tight end sucks typically.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many ways to play. Either pay up and just play Kittle or Kelsey, or you pay up a little, you play Hawkinson, or you could find Conklin, Croft, Everett. I mean, or just pair whatever stack you're using. If you're using Trevor Lawrence, James O'Shaughnessy, there you go. Like how much more? Like, should Kyle Pitts be 35% owned where all these other tight ends are 5% owned? And I believe you're right. If you're using tight end as a leverage point. Now, what Adam said, which what I built primarily for, it's not like I was over on Kyle Pitts, but looking at Kyle Pitts at 4,400, you have to look underneath and go, obviously, if you play Kelsey, your construction's just going to be different because it's not a 1v1 anymore. Kittle's not a 1v1. So the only tight ends that I'm worried about with Kyle Pitts, let's say Kyle Pitts scores 12, right? An average, like not a ceiling game, but an average game. How many of these tight ends underneath 4,400 can score 12? Like the only way that I get burned by Kyle Pitts is if a cheaper tight end significantly outscores. I'm not talking, if Kyle Pitts has 12 and this tight end is 16, like how much am I that much behind? I'm 4 points behind. So looking at the tight ends below him, I just felt like if I could get Kyle Pitts 12, like I'm still fine. I'm not going to beat out Kelsey's 25. You're right, but I'm not paying 4,000 more. I get that from a wide receiver instead of Kelsey, right? So I'm assuming in your builds you built 3 lineups. Did you have Kyle Pitts in any of the 3?
No, I didn't play any Kyle Pitts, and I think about it a little bit differently, and maybe it was just the way that I ended up building because of like what you said. I was on the exact same thing, living in that mid range at running back. So like that was actually probably where I started, even before like the Kyle Pitts leverage point. It was the kind of flipping the build or whatever people want to say it. That mid range.
You flipped the construction on its head.
Yes, the slate was flipped on its head repeatedly on Sunday. It was flipped on its head. But so it was originally like, okay, I kind of looked at those running backs. And when you think about it from a macro perspective, like Joe Mixon at 6,200, right? Even, Najee sucked, but like even Najee Harris at, around 6K, Mostert after the sermon thing, Mike Davis, there was a ton, Antonio Gibson. I played Antonio Gibson. There was a ton of guys in that tier that if we look back in a month on this slate and those guys are that price, like they're going to be the absolute stone cold chalk. But just because of the slate dynamics, I know, Mostert and Mixon and some of those guys picked up some ownership, but it wasn't to the extent that we might see in the future. So that was definitely part of it. So then once I kind of established that fact, it became this like basically kind of a 2v2 game. And every time I went to one of those punt tight ends, I was able to get a wide receiver like I played a lot of the Panthers passing game, which is, part of why I didn't have Christian McCaffrey. And so like I can get DJ Moore, I can get Robbie Anderson. I played Keenan Allen with Antonio Gibson, right? Getting into like that, I wanted to get into that tier of wide receiver too. Where I was able to live, let's just call it 6K or whatever. I played a Bills stack, so I had Stephon Diggs, and it allowed me to get up to Claypool or Juju or Deontay or whatever as my bring back on that. So it was just kind of how I ended up building, where that leverage at tight end ended up, I kind of needed the cheaper guys. Now, obviously, in retrospect, goddamn, why didn't I just play, like the Mahomes stacks or whatever and play Kelsey? But it's easy to say now. But like same thing as what you said, I think it was kind of like both right. And I was leaning more on that kind of mid-tier build, and the stacks I was targeting kind of required that I get that, extra $2,000 or whatever to spend at wide receiver.
Right. I played some Mahomes in a single entry 3 max, but I didn't play the double stack. The problem I saw with the double stack, obviously this is in hindsight, but I believe I would be accurate to say that if you played the double, so you're playing 8,200 for Hill and you're paying 8,300 for Kelsey and you're paying 100 for Mahomes, it would lead you to 2 mid-range running backs, and you still had to play 3K wide receiver. Like, it still ended up, like, it got me to the mid-range running backs, which is what I wanted to do, but now I'm stuck with with having to play Marvin Jones or Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore, like all those guys in that range. It's like, but the only way that works out is if the Chiefs stack just goes nuts, and obviously Tyreek has 40 points, Kelsey has
Yeah.
25, and Mahomes is 38. Yes, that will work in that case, but in most cases, I just wanted to avoid these 3K guys. I wanted to play someone like in the mid. I was living more in the 4,500 ish. I was like similar guys, but like they're much better. Like I'm playing Corey Davis
Yeah.
as obviously because Elijah Moore is chalk on the other
Yep.
side. I had tons
Jamar
of
Chase.
right, Jamar
Devonta
Chase,
Smith.
Devontae Smith,
Yep.
Higgins. I'm playing
Yep.
kind of a lot in Pittman, that range
Mhm.
of types of receivers, and that also lets me go up to a premium tight end from Pitts, or allows me to go to a premium running back with Pitts. But the thing that I to go back to this Mostert thing, which goes along with a tweet that you had this morning about what we talk about next week's slate. In the past, it's 2021. Like literally, I said this to James on Monday. Last year, what was it, week 13, week 14? Ezekiel Elliott, inactive, like unexpected completely, right? Tony Pollard's like 9% owned. I mean, like, I'm jamming him into 60% of my lineups. And even in the higher stakes, he ended up coming in at like 18, right?
Yeah,
so still
I
way
remember.
higher. That was information that we knew 90 minutes before lock, that if you were using projections anywhere, Pollard became basically the top point per dollar play of the season, right? Like of the entire season at that point. And 10% owned in the large field and like almost maybe 20 in the small field. Raheem Mostert goes from like 10% ownership to 30% ownership in the same way. And it's not like, even in projections, it's not like he was jamming in. He ended up being very similar to Mike Davis or Joe Mixon in that range. Like if you originally had Mixon and you said, I'm going to go down 400 and get Mostert, like then I get it, right?
Yep.
But it's not like the type of thing I got to jam this guy into like 100% of my lineups, although some people did. And the same thing with the Mike Davis news with Galvin being inactive. My question is, like, how come as early as not even a year ago, right, in NFL terms, right? So in 2.5 months of NFL DFS terms, did the field like nowhere come close to react properly for that Pollard thing? But in this instance, like I played about, in large field, I played about 22% Raheem Mostert, assuming I was going to be double the field. Right. Assuming that. So I'm building my lineups based on that. And then when I see he's in the $5 milli, he was 23.6% owned. And I go, I'm actually in the efficient range now. Do you believe, like your tweet, because we'll talk about are people going to overreact? Because my favorite week is week 2. Is you said that people aren't going to, quote, overreact as usual because so many more people are utilizing subscription sites and projections and optimizers and are on the pulse. They're listening to more stuff, reading more articles from smarter people, that those overreactions, like the game log watching is not going to be there. Do you think that it highlights your point more? The fact that look at Mostert's ownership in 90 minutes before lock, or do you think that the Mostert thing was an aberration?
I think it's possibly a little bit of both. I was also surprised by the Mostert ownership. He was one of my guys, which was also really frustrating because he was one of my plays that I liked a ton for tournaments before the sermon news. And I really was like, I was going to play him, in at least one of my lineups, probably 2. And then I made sure to play him in 2 after the ownership, kind of bump. But again, same thing as you. I didn't expect that, but I wanted to like kind of make a stand on him after I knew he was going to get at least a little bit of steam. However, the amount of steam that he got, Yeah, becoming one of the highest owned running backs of the slate. I thought was
Eric, he was 41% owned in the game changer.
I know. It's absolutely ridiculous. I did not see that coming. And what I think it's a little bit of some of the stuff we talked about last year, where you remember the Cowboys Giants game after Dak was still healthy, and the Cowboys had just scored like 7 million points.
We're talking about when everyone saw that and like, oh, that's obviously the chalk and whatever, and then it actually came in as the third highest owned stack instead of the number one.
And so there's so much more. Everyone is galaxy braining each other, I feel like, right now. And we get a few more of the, this is the opposite end of that, right? Where everybody sees Raheem Mostert 10% owned. They see Sermon's out. And I know that everybody probably thought the same thing as like you and I did. He's going to get an ownership bump, but it's probably not going to be enough, was essentially kind of what my thought process was. And so everybody's thinking that. And the game changer is a lot of the sharper players, and so they're like, okay, they see Mixon's kind of the popular guy right there, and then you have the elite guys, whatever. Mostert just screams this natural tournament pivot, and so that's what everybody does.
Yeah, but we saw it, but we not as much of an effect in the. I can understand your point from in the game changer, the luxury box.
Yeah.
Like level $1,500, $3,000 level, really small field, 100 to 300 entry type of thing, because it's people that it's mostly people that pay attention, or people that are just throwing in their cash lineup, and the cash lineup would obviously have all those chalky players in it.
Yeah.
But to have it in the millie be that way, I mean, Elijah Moore was 31% owned in the game changer. He was 9% owned in the $5 millie. So like he got ownership, but I'm just saying like Elijah Moore was like Callaway got 20% in the millie, and 27% in the game changer. But like it's hard to wrap my head around the fact that people in the $5 millie, which had 1.2 million entries, okay, were quote sharp enough to play Mostert after Sermon got inactive, yet only played 9% of Elijah Moore. Right? Yeah. Like it's like I would figure, I mean, ETR, nothing against ETR as a site, but I'm not too sure manually massaging ownership projections is the best way to do it. There should be manual massaging. But I think I believe ETR goes a little. I think it's hard for me to say this without saying that Levitan is bad at projecting ownership. But I believe that they take themselves into account too much. Because I aggregate ownership throughout the industry. I subscribe everywhere. Mm-hmm. So when I see them projecting Elijah Moore for 28% ownership in the $5 millie, I call bullshit on that. But I still I expected 18%, right? And he ended up coming in at 9%, right? So how being that difference there of I'm expecting 18, ETR is expecting 28, he comes in at 9, so you go, oh, if he only came in at 9% ownership, like these are people that aren't as attentive to at least content and everything like that. Then how come Mostert is also 24% owned? Like that's the hard part of like,
I know
if they're paying attention to if they're on Twitter going, oh, because you're gonna see the season long people, right, with the tweets at 11:35 or whatever. We've moved up Mostert to RB3 on the week, right? We've moved this, he's a must start now. We moved him from sits to starts. You see all of that, and these people are also playing DFS. Like, how come Rondell Moore is only 5% owned in the Millie Maker, yet Mostert went from like, unless I'm making the wrong assumption here, unless it could be this, the ownership projection originally of Mostert from 7 to 10% was off, and people just saw the 49ers against the Lions. I'm going to play a $5,800 running back, and maybe Mostert, without the news, would have been 18% owned in the millie as it was. And the thing that backs me up on that kind of theory, James Robinson was 22% owned in the $5 milli.
Jesus
Now,
Christ.
James Robinson, for his price on FanDuel, I understood.
Yep.
But in comparison to other running backs and the construction you were making on DraftKings, 22.8% owned is way over-owned. So does that, like, people look at James Robinson, they look at the Texans, and they go, Jaguars are a favorite. I'm taking a favored running back in the mid-range. They may have thought the same exact thing. Like, is it due to the fact, maybe the jump from the late news didn't really help Mostert at all in the small field stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have been talking about if there was no news, we would have said the game changer Mostert was 9% owned, and in the milli he was 19% owned. And you go, look at how drastically sharp differences, right? Look, Mostert and Robinson both got ownership in the milli and barely any in the game changer. So maybe, I mean, that just came to be right now that I just went with the assumption that Mostert was going to be like 10% owned to begin with, and maybe that baseline was the wrong baseline.
Right. So yeah, we had the going in assumption of what we thought that person was going to be mainly based on projections, right? Same thing with James Robinson is the game has become so much projection, which is kind of what I was talking about on Twitter this morning. Is like people aren't just chasing whether it be game logs, or I know there's no game logs for week one, but chasing the matchup, right? This guy actually doesn't really project very well, James Robinson, Raheem Mostert, but the matchup is pristine, or they're on an awesome offense, right? Like the 49ers. That was the Mostert thing. And it's possible, and so like I'm always referencing that in terms of the contest that I'm playing in, right? Because I do feel comfortable like making some of those assessments on the luxury box or the game changer or whatever, because those players are focusing in more on the projection. And then now, kind of like I brought up earlier, there is a little bit of that game theory wrinkle, right? Everybody's kind of galaxy braining each other. But in the the $5 milli, I think it's possible, and maybe that'll go away too as the season goes on. But coming in right away, right? Especially think about the context of James Robinson. Last year, he is the workhorse, right? That he was the, baby CMC. He never left the field for the Jaguars. He was like always over-owned last year. You remember last year, like he finally got to be expensive, and he was the guy in the lower stakes stuff that he was like the one guy people were continuing to chase. Now he gets the Texans. Everybody thinks the Texans are an absolute abomination, of a franchise. Turns out the Jaguars are the ones that are the abomination of a franchise, and people just play him. Flip side, the Lions are like the laughing stock, right? Their coach is a freaking psychopath that drinks, never-ending pots of coffee, and like they are wide receivers are worse than college teams. Like there's all this stuff like going into this week one, just specifically relating to those two matchups, those two teams. Everybody's excited for the 49ers. I was excited for the 49ers. And so I think those casual consumers, those might be really like hyper specific scenarios like that you said, that we were just wrong because we're in this bubble and looking at the projections and all that. And it might be right for the luxury box or whatever. But, just this really specific example, I think it was fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating to me, and I definitely still don't have an answer, but I think there's going to be kind of random outlier situations like that pop up every once in a while. But also, what do you think? Like, do you think that that's something that maintains at all? Like, I feel like that's something that probably starts to go away like really, really quickly. Like people are not going to chase the guy against the Texans as much, like very, very quickly when they don't project as well. But I also could be wrong on that too.
Well, I think it's highly dependent on the contest.
Yeah.
I mean, the contest that you're playing, yes. And I am gonna. You play the game changer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be.
I played Mostert in
right, the game changer, right? But I would have done the same. I would have ended up on a construction that had Mostert in it anyway. I'll be with you in the game changer next week. It's Saturday.
Everything
morning.
filled on Saturday afternoon.
It's filled like late Saturday morning or something, because I go and I'm like after my soccer, right? Then I do the before I did my stupid Saturday stream. I'm like, okay, let me go in and enter the game. I decided what I was going to do yet. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to play the game changer this year. I'm going to play it every week. And then I go, what the fuck's the game changer? I see the luxury box. I'm like, I ain't spending $3,000 on a lineup. But 1500 single entry especially,
Mm.
and it's gone. So I'm like, okay, I guess this is the lineup that I play in the SPY, right? Like whatever I came up with. I have a question for you it was a conversation I was having in another Discord about the San Francisco Detroit game. Uh, obviously, my top targets for my lineups were the Seattle Indianapolis game, was the Buffalo Pittsburgh game, doing very similar to you, Allen, Diggs, Claypool, or Deontay Johnson, and the Carolina Jets game, but the passing it, Darnold plus Anderson with Corey Davis, like that type of lineup.
Yep. Yep.
But San Francisco had a high team total, and this is obviously before the Mostert news.
Mm-hmm.
So someone was trying to sell me on strategically of why aren't we playing a 49ers stack? Like why aren't we playing a 3+1 of Garoppolo, Samuel, or Ayuk, which turned out Ayuk is just a punt returner, but whatever. Kittle, and then on the Detroit side, I mean, like even a skinny stack. And I kept on saying to him, I said, I don't like this as a stack. I said, I like it as a secondary correlation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, first things first. Like, I'm going to explain it the way that I'm thinking about it, and you see, either you agree or you have some... Is this how you think about it? The two top receivers for both teams are both tight ends. Okay? Yeah. So, and I'm not building a two tight end lineup. So if I play Garoppolo, Kittle... Hawkinson run back, I'm like wasting a flex spot on a tight end. If I play Goff, I'm going to play Hawkinson, and then the run back would be Samuel, and that's okay. If I'm playing Garoppolo, Samuel, Hawkinson, okay. Obviously, that was the best combination of them. But in any of those combinations, the quarterback has to be the quarterback one, right? The problem with the stack is that I couldn't see Garoppolo having a high enough chance at being the quarterback one versus Kyler, versus Russ, versus Mahomes, versus Hurts, versus a lot of these guys, Aaron Rodgers. It's like I don't think I could get enough production out of the stack. Like, in order for Garoppolo to be quarterback one, I need to double stack him, right?
Yeah.
He's a double stacking type. He's not going to... So I need to... So what am I double stacking him with? Well, I have Kittle, and then either I play that as with no run back, because then what am I going to do? Samuel, Kittle, Tyrell Williams. I mean, I guess you can, right? But I'd rather have Hawkinson in the lineup. So it just made it's like, number one, I need to make sure that the quarterback is QB1 on the slate or close to it or something like that. And then you have the top receivers on both teams are tight ends. And I'm like, yeah, feel free to play Samuel plus Hawkinson. Obviously, that was the nuts. If you did that, feel free to play Mostert plus Hawkinson. Feel free to play Kittle plus Tyrell. That's fine. Like, but once you stick in that quarterback in there, these quarterbacks, Goff and Garoppolo, they're not going to be high-scoring quarterbacks without putting up 300-400 yards and 4 touchdowns, which means I need more than one receiver paired with them for a ceiling. And none of those constructions, because of the tight ends, work out that way. I'd rather just say, if I skinny stack, like, then I don't... If you skinny stack there, you're basically saying Garoppolo puts up 22 points, and it all goes to one player, and then you lose to Kyler Murray. Like, you lose to some other quarterback. So, like, the stack... I was like, it's not like I don't like the game. It's just that I don't like the combinations that you need to make in order to get proper ceiling in your lineups. Is that a similar methodology that you use?
100%. I actually was talking about this with somebody, I think on Sunday morning, where there's games or spots or whatever. Like, if we remove the names and don't think about some of that nuance, specifically as it relates to DFS, where I'm like, I like this game, like, even actually I thought the Chiefs were one that was difficult. I liked Odell, and Landry was okay, but the same thing, I might have liked like a Browns tight end, or like the Browns and the Lions are a fairly interesting kind of comparison because, obviously the Odell thing ended up being. But there was a little uncertainty around Odell, which made it a little bit hairy, in it being the afternoon game.
Right.
But
I
the
had a
Browns,
lot. I had a lot of OBJ with my Chiefs
yeah,
because of the Q tag. I'm
right.
like he's not going to be owned at all, and then I obviously had to switch from there.
Yeah, I was very, very close to playing Tyreek and Odell, but the best, like some of the best plays on the Browns are their two running backs, and that's kind of the same thing for the Lions, but with the tight end, right? So that creates a weird roster construction. It can be totally like playing Swift and Debo or Swift and Kittle or something makes perfect sense, but as you're starting to think about what stacks you're going to build out, it creates this awkward, these awkward like decision points that you have to make where, like you said, what the ideal, right, is like quarterback, two wide receivers with the wide receiver bring back, maybe if you're mixing in a tight end or whatever, but the total ideal is, you call it 3+1, right? A 3+1 build, and it's typically the wide receivers because when the game is shooting out, it's all these wide receivers, right? I mean, Darren Waller, I guess, is the exception, but even look at the game last night. Right. I don't know that everybody expected that kind of insane game, but Bryan Edwards is catching bombs and Hunter Renfro's got 8 catches. Sammy Watkins is catching bombs. It's just crazy. And so these wide receivers are the ones that are, pass catchers, like traditional pass catchers, not the running backs. So when it doesn't fit into those constructs, that's something that I personally really, really struggle with. Quarterback is also part of that discussion. People might like question me because I played Sam Darnold, but I actually felt fairly strongly that Darnold did have the upside to at least, I don't know about beat Kyler Murray and beat Mahomes, but for 5K, I actually thought he could.
Yeah, but he's much shit. No. The guys like Darnold are there. I mean, Garoppolo is like in the 6K range. I mean, like
was he? I didn't even know how expensive he was. So
right. Well, that's what I mean. But like at least Darnold. Like that stack is cheap. Like to me, Darnold is a vomit stack. So basically, you're betting on the fact that no quarterback is. It's not that Darnold's going to put up 30+ points. You're betting on the fact that no quarterback puts up 30+ points. Like that, it's in that price range. But if you play Aaron Rodgers at 6,800, you're betting that he puts up 30+ points because if he doesn't, you might as well have played Sam Darnold in that spot and save the money.
Yep. And I think early in the season, that the Panthers were just kind of a stand, from doing all this best ball shit for months. They were an offense that I've been wanting to invest in. And I do think, Sam Darnold, we're going to like half victory lap, half take an L. He had like 19 fantasy points in the first half and he ran and he had a rushing touchdown, which is like people are like, oh, you can't play him. He doesn't run, all this kind of stuff. And so I think capitalizing on some of the things where I thought the market might have been wrong about that offense and about that player was why I was interested in him. Obviously the second half was brutal and that stack didn't really get there, but that stack made sense, right? It's a condensed offense. Even if you wanted to play him with CMC, I guess you probably could. CMC like led the team in targets. Not really my forte, but like it was so easy to make that stack, right? Darnold plus 2 receivers and Corey Davis, or if you want to play Elijah Moore, I played Tyler Kroft. You want to do those different things. It was so easy to make that stack. Whereas you have a guy like Jimmy G who's more expensive and like they really want to run. Like, if the game is going how you expect it, Jimmy G is not doing much really, volume wise passing. And so there's just so many roadblocks to certain stacks as it relates to guys like Jimmy G or teams like the Browns, even, especially once you removed Odell, teams like the Lions, where I tend to, and maybe this is a mistake, I don't know, but I tend to exactly what you said. Give me Hawkinson and Debo in that scenario, or give me Mostert and Hawkinson, or Swift and Kittle, or whatever. I love the secondary correlations in those spots, and I actually think they often tend to go under-owned too because of this conversation. Nobody wants to play Jimmy G, no matter how good the spot is. Right.
The ownership of the quarterback going down creates the ownership on all the players that he'd be attached to go down as well.
Yeah, so I like capitalizing there, but I think you're actually making it, you're actually like killing yourself and killing your upside, going to like taking it that extra step and making it, a Jimmy G double stack in that scenario. And maybe some people would disagree with me on that, but I feel pretty firmly, I feel pretty strong about that one. Whereas it's that funny thing, right? Like you could tell someone like, no, you played Debo and Hawkinson. That was like amazing, right? Even if you played the guys who sucked, right? You played Tyrell and Kittle. Like that was,
or you played Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, yeah, or you played Brandon Ayuk. You played whatever. Like if somebody showed me a lineup, I'd be like, that looks really nice. But if you just included Jimmy G, I'm like, nope, that looks bad. And it's hard maybe sometimes to explain that. But I think those nuances of like how, like you said, the quarterback thing, the quarterback scoring, what you need from Jimmy G, all that kind of stuff, and the positional, the tight end thing, all that is like maybe a little difficult to explain, but it's like super, super important.
Right. I mean, that's why a lot of times when I'm building 3+1s, I'd rather just play the tight, unless I'm going to pay up at tight end. I'll just play the tight end of whatever it is. I'll play, I'm not going to play Manhurts or anything like that, second tight ends or anything. But I'm more likely to do that or just pay up. Or that's the spot where I have Pitts, I have Hawkinson, I have Kittle, I have like Kelsey. Those are where those lineups are. Everything else is just, I have Tyler Conklin. Okay, great. So it's Cousins, Jefferson, Conklin, Higgins. Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's Uzama. Who cares? Who cares? At that point, you're playing for a touchdown. And if you're playing for a touchdown, why not play with the touchdown that the quarterback that you already have throws in the ball? So I mean, that to me that's the default. But also in overstacking. So for instance, I didn't play the Game Changer, which is a 142 entry contest. What I was planning on by playing Russ with 3, playing a 4+1, so I could just get like basically I want the entire Seahawks passing offense, and to be able to fill up a tight end spot that was not going to be Kyle Pitts, and that I obviously couldn't afford a high end one because I was playing both Lockett and Metcalf, and then pairing like Devonta Smith and Mike Davis, like that would have been like my lineup. The overstacking concept, because I could have done it a different way. I was thinking about doing not playing Devonta Smith and Mike Davis and just playing Pittman and Campbell or Pascal. Like basically just like I'm playing a 4+2 and then one-offs in the rest of the spots, and just like if the game goes off, I think I could beat 142 people. I know Leone talks about those overstacking constructions all the time, but do you think the key question is, once I put Lockett and Metcalf together, 7,500 and 6,700, like that's I'm obviously not like for large field stuff. I think I just don't think Lockett and Metcalf together have a ceiling to win a large field GPP. But do you think it's more of a leak? I mean, obviously I'm making up a lineup that I would have played because I couldn't fucking get in the goddamn contest, right? And I probably would have come close to the cash line, but not gotten there, because I probably would have had Mostert in that lineup. I saw the construction. I needed either Mixon and I probably would have, with the 11:30 news, gone like, fuck this Mostert, like that, no one's gonna react, and then he ends up being 41% owned. Do you think that? How much do you consider of when you have two higher price wide receivers or even tight ends to go, because we're still like Hill and Kelsey are a perfect example of that at the highest. And we had like Ridley and Julio before. We have Godwin, Evans, Brown. Like you got all the receivers are fairly expensive. Do you think in a 142 entry contest that that's more plus EV to try to just get as much of the... I'm betting on Russell Wilson getting 30 plus points. Like I might as well not have to worry about, did I pick the right one between Metcalf and Lockett, and just say, I hope they have 3 touchdowns between them, and I don't care if Metcalf has 50 points and Lockett has 3. I still get 53 points from those 2 receivers with Wilson. Do you build your lineups to that overstacking extent?
Probably not even as much as I should.
Like in your Darnold lineup, for instance, did you play like Moore and Anderson and like you could have played like You could have played Darnold,
Right.
McCaffrey, Anderson, Moore. Like that would be the
Yep.
overstack, right?
Right. And I thought about it, and I will say, like, this is something that even maybe 2-3 years ago I was like, I didn't consider, because of all the things we talked about. Like, if I'm thinking about,
Yeah, but this is right. We're
optimal.
talking about the small field stuff. Like, I want
Correct.
people that are listening to realize you probably are not doing like playing 4 or 5 guys from the same team and 2 run backs
Yep.
for the 1.2 million entry contest, because these at some point these ceilings are negatively correlated to one another.
Yep.
But in a 200 or less field contest, especially if you're playing a game that is not chalky, like I want all of Seattle's 38 points, and then you guys have to run me down with your mixing and matching everything, and let's
Yep.
see if you could do it.
And I have it's funny because I've had the few times I've done it, I have had success. I think, like, back to like the Vikings last year. And it's because it's so condensed, right? Same thing with Seattle. It's like you said, like, almost for sure, right, that like if Seattle scores 45 points, Lockett, Metcalf, Gerald Everett, like,
I could
it's
put in
happening.
Carson even. I could play
Yeah.
Carson at his price. See 6,000, throw him in also.
And so it's something that I definitely need to, like, get better about considering. The struggle I have is, especially on a week like this week 1, I found it really hard because of how soft I thought that the pricing was.
And it turns out it wasn't soft because all those players failed.
Exactly. And like, even all the, right, we talk about like the
Right, but
mid-range,
before,
like,
I understand what he's saying. Before the slate, you're like, why would I stack Russell Wilson, Carson, Lockett, Metcalf, Everett, when at all of those positions I could play a guy that's like 1,000 cheaper that projects as good as them. Like, if I put that through lineup HQ, like that, those overstacked, the heavily overstacked would just project for like 25 points lower than other lineups that were just 3+1s. And you're like, well, why do I have to do it on this slate? It seems like more of the type of thing that you would do on a slate where, like, it's one of those slates where we're like starved for value, and it's just like, because everything is more efficient, let me just take a shot on a team in a game and then try to run me down.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is I think it works really, really well on those slates where we're like, you get slates. Again, referencing like last year, the chalk is not all these $3,000. I know that they literally all failed, but like, the chalk is not these like actually really strongly projected 3K guys, or not even as strongly projected as Mostert, as Mixon, as Mike Davis, as Kyle Pitts. It, like, when we get to this, week 8 or week 9 or something, when you remember Jets, but we're talking Braxton Berrios and Denzel Mims and stuff like those weeks. When you get to those weeks, we're talking about $3,000 wide receivers that, like, I forget, there was another one we had where the guy didn't play. He didn't touch the field.
No, I remember. I think 2 years ago. No, I remember 2 years ago. Multiple Raiders receivers were out. So the whole thing was Martavis Bryant is the wide receiver 1 for the Raiders, and he's 3K. Right? He is the wide receiver. Like, who else are they going to play? And then they brought in like practice squad guys, and it's the second quarter, and most of Twitter is like, has Brian played a snap? And I think he played a total of 3 snaps, got no targets, and he was like, in catch games, he was like 42% owned.
So those slates are like the absolute perfect for that, right? Because you can approach it in multiple different ways. You can find an offense, and overstack them and include these like cheap, kind of shitty ancillary pieces, right? Because it's like, so like I remember seeing Giant Squid's lineup in the luxury box. He played all of the Cardinals wide receivers: Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk, AJ Green, DeAndre Hopkins, and Rondale Moore on Sunday. And he got like 20th. And so,
did he play Chase Edmonds also?
No Chase Edmonds, Kamara and Mixon. So then he just like plugged in, like, I guess
the best plays, right? Then you just plug in the projections, right?
So no run back. But anyway, it was kind of fascinating. So, anyway, that does speak to part of it where I think it's more viable maybe even than I was giving it credit for on a slate, even a looser pricing slate, like I was saying. But that was also an example of, okay, I'm getting like all my value from that. right? So he gets Christian Kirk like out of absolutely nowhere. Christian Kirk, huge two touchdown game, and obviously the Cardinals score a ton of points. So he's getting it. Obviously DeAndre Hopkins was good, but he's getting it from these cheap guys, right? They're like he consumed all this value from these cheap guys. Where obviously the rest of the field is not getting that from Terrace Marshall and Elijah Moore and Marquez Callaway and even really Marvin Jones. And so I think that also, but again, on the tighter, the more efficiently priced slates, that's like amazing. Like I love doing that. The guy that projects for 4 targets or whatever for 3K, but he's 2% owned because Martavis Bryant, projects well, or Braxton Berrios projects well. It's like those are the perfect slates for me to do that. But on the flip side, you can also do the opposite thing on a slate. Again, I think it's more when it's a little bit more efficiently priced, which I actually think moving forward already we're going to have a lot more efficiently priced slates. So it's really going to start to come into play. But same thing when there's not like every team's wide receiver 1 is like affordably priced and there's like tons of amazingly projected running backs. You can just say, okay, give me all the Seahawks. They score 45 points. Like I'm definitely cashing. And I probably have some kind of crazy 2-3% owned guy that has just gone nuts. And so you guys got to run me down with like plays that, were median projected, from a median projection standpoint, we're probably pretty good, but may not, Braxton Berrios didn't have a ceiling, right? Braxton Berrios was never scoring 35 fantasy points. So like if you hit on the Seahawks game, the chalk is not running you down. So I think it makes a lot of sense on those slates, but I struggled with it, in week 1 for the reasons like we talked about.
Well, going forward, to get to your tweet about, are people going to overreact to week 1? Okay? Because week 2 is my favorite week. Because people will look at small sample sizes and they think that they know. I mean, that's my whole thing in general, that people think they know and they don't. Now, you made a pondering that because so many more people than in the past, and I would agree with you if it would go 2015, definitely, are playing with some type of projection set, or they're listening or reading smart players that are giving, here are the best plays, but I mean, if you go to the projections, that's
what it says.
That's my whole bugbear with content, is not that the content is bad. It's just that I could just show up Sunday morning and it's going to be everything that I'm looking at in any reasonably good projection set anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why do I have to spend 20 hours to read through all this crap when like I could just go right to the numbers? You believe that because of that, like the game log watching type of stuff is like, I think the good example this coming week is Najee Harris. He put up 6 points, but he played 100% of the Steelers snaps. Okay, now projections last week had him for a heavy snap share. But if he's going to play, but now he's in a better matchup against the Raiders defense. And projections are going to, I'm looking at just the initial Roto-Grinders Gridiron IQ projections. He projects as, from a salary adjusted value, the number 1 running back on the entire slate at like 6,100 or whatever he is. But he only scored 6 points. Yes, on Sunday. Your thing is that, well, in the past, if this was 2015, Najee Harris would come up to this slate and be 8% owned, right? Because people will look as like, the guy had a bad game or whatever like that. But because of content and projections, like Najee Harris could easily come in at 30% owned this week, even though he only put up 6 points yesterday or Sunday or whatever. The counterpoint since I made your point for you, is the way that I play. And the way that I play is a little bit more nutso. This is the reason why I listen to content. Like, I listen to all the podcasts. It's not like I'm listening in 10. People think, you're listening to 30 hours worth of content? Yeah, at 1.5 speed while I'm in the shower or while I'm doing other work. And sometimes a podcast goes completely by and I don't even remember listening to it. I mean, because you're paying attention to something else. So it's like talk radio in the background. The thing of Najee Harris, all these projections People don't realize it's not done, NFL especially, not done by an algorithm. Now, the model back tests and everything, for the weights and all the variables, but some human being has to put in a snap share, a target share. Like someone has to make those adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, to me, the exploitative version of that, of Najee Harris. He got 100% of snap. I'm assuming we're gonna hear that on every podcast. Okay?
Every goddamn podcast.
Right. He only had 6 points. And hey, there may be people that don't go there because they see he had a bad game, right? And projections are going to show him well, and all the content's going to say, you got to play this guy. What happens if Benny Snell gets half the work? Right. That's what I mean by you don't know shit type of thing. Is Benny Snell going to get half? Probably not. Right? Is Najee Harris going to play 100? Now, obviously, Najee Harris could play 100% of snaps again and also only get 6 points also. I mean, like, the efficiency couldn't be there as well. But, like, for instance, on FanDuel, maybe playing James Robinson this coming week, right? I don't even know if they're playing, whatever. But I'm talking about those types of things. We saw something in one game, and then we're going to go, oh, that's going to be the way it is for the next 15 games. Like, no, my attitude is I'm more likely to go against what we just saw, right? Because you may bring out, like, Kyle Pitts only put up 7 points, but if you actually looked at Hayden Hurst is tight end 1, yeah, and Kyle Pitts is wide receiver 2 now, right? Like, he played like all the snot. Like, it's not like he wasn't on the field. It's just that he wasn't playing as a tight end. It negatively affected Russell Gage more than anyone else. Mm-hmm. So people may be smart enough to go, well, maybe I'm playing Kyle Pitts because, yeah, he's not going to be as owned as he was this past week. But I want to see I need to hear and see what that narrative, that like, someone got a 25% target share in week 1. We're going to plug in 25%. And I'm go, well, what happens if it's back down to 14 like it was for all of last season? Why are we adjusting it to that extent? So to me, that's why I like week 2. It's not the game log, but it's not people are going to play Deebo Samuel again because he had a big game. It's not that. It's the people are going to overreact to the snap and target shares and the play calling of week 1, adjust and it's going to end up in projections also. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to go, well, what if week 1 was what happens if week 1 was a anomaly, right? Like what if Jamal Williams actually does more than DeAndre Swift? Like it just so happened in that game because the Lions were down by 3 touchdowns that it's more likely that DeAndre Swift is going to be working out of the backfield. But who knows? Like it's not Derrick Henry. Like the Titans. That's a team I want to play, right?
Oh yeah,
right. It's like the recency bias of that, and nothing has changed from week to week other than the Titans sucked on offense. Who says Julio Jones can't have an 8-catch, 120-yard, 2-touchdown game? Like that's something that we before the game on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals, A.J. Brown was like, Cardinals high pace. This is one of the highest total games. And now all of a sudden people may go, well, they only threw to they both had 0 targets through the first quarter. I mean, we're going, how is it possible that the 2 alpha receivers have nothing? The Cardinals have 5 sacks in the first quarter or whatever. People may overreact to that, and they'll look at the target share and go, oh, maybe the Titans offense isn't playing out the way that we thought. It's like, no, maybe the Titans in week 2, the winning lineup has Tannehill and Henry and Brett. Like, it's one of those weeks, right?
Yeah.
Where the court, because we've seen those where Tannehill throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Derrick Henry has 160 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns also. The Titans haven't really changed much.
No.
Right.
Their defense might have gotten worse, which is actually really good for
right.
For
but
fantasy,
are those
right?
like, I'm not, when you sent out that tweet, it's not the you were referring to the Najee Harris type of stuff where
correct,
where people aren't going to look at a game log and overreact that way. I'm going more of the fact of maybe I'm going to be under on Najee because maybe we're just assuming he's going to get 100% of the snaps when he really You know, if we projected Najee Harris to get only 65% of the snaps, right? He goes from the best running back play on the slate to he's 7% owned, right? I mean, that's how big of a difference, like 20 or 30% of snaps. If he played, let's say he played 70%, 75% of the snaps, I guarantee you his ownership will be like 12%. I mean, he'll be there. He'll be there in that range. But once you give him 100% of snaps and they're playing the Raiders, with the team total that's going to come out for them, like, yeah, that's going to be in projections. People are going to play that. I mean, we see it in PGA. All the PGA DFS people that I know are always astonished from when they compare their PGA play from 5 or 6 years ago. It's like, a guy misses misses the cut in the last event, plays horribly, and then is chalked the next week. Because it's obviously his price goes down, the field strength gets, he becomes one of the better golfers in the $7,200 range on a course and a field that he should beat. And it was just the aberration that and then now he's 26% on. And you go, it's like, dude, in the past, if a guy had a miss, no one would play guys off of missed cuts. And now everyone is just like, nope, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to go by his prior for the past 5 years that he should. That's just an aberration. So like that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, where it's not a game log kind of chasing type of thing. It's a we assume snap and target share type of thing.
100%. It's all about, and I couldn't agree, like this week, next week, these first few weeks, because even like next week, even week 4, even like week 5, maybe by like week 9, week 10, we're pretty much going to know. But even like this first month, we're really not going to know. I mean, shoot, like guys are getting hurt already, right? Mostert's hurt, so we're going to make assumptions about Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon. I guess we'll have to wait for Sunday to see if Trey Sermon's even going to be active this week. But Jerry Jeudy gets hurt, right? Guys are getting hurt, so there's always constantly things changing, and that's only shrinking the sample, right? Jeudy got hurt, I guess, in the first half of that game, so now. I literally I pulled up some of the projections, same thing that you were looking at. Like Tim Patrick is one of the best point per dollar projections, right? And it's like I get it. I understand it, but we're making massive assumptions about really really small samples, and so it comes down to me. Is the easiest way for me to kind of word that tweet and where people would get it, like the game log chasing thing. But what it really is the combination of those two things. Where is the market reacting, and where are they not reacting to what happened in week 1, right? Maybe there is no player like this, but maybe Najee played 100% of snaps, and now we're gonna assume that he's gonna continue to play 100% of snaps, and he's gonna finally start scoring some fantasy points. Maybe there was another guy who played 98% of snaps. This is not true, but like there was another guy, and but we didn't have that assumption coming in, right? We thought he was just going to be. I mean, frankly, Elijah Mitchell might actually be that for the 49ers. He played after Mostert got hurt, he played 80% of the snaps, got basically all the running back work. JaMychal Hasty just barely mixed in. Now, I'm guessing he'll be a little bit owned, but again, I don't know. Maybe the market is worried about the Kyle Shanahan thing, right? Because maybe
the market just disregards that and goes, well, I'm playing Mitchell anyway, and
yeah,
and so right. So to me, I said on this morning's pregame show that I don't know what I'm going to do until I know what the market's going to do. So because people would ask me, it's like, so are you going to play Mitchell on Sunday? I go, I'll play Mitchell at 6% ownership, but not at 22% ownership. Like, I need to know where the market is going. Either the market's going to say he's the running back 1. Who cares about Hasty? Who cares about if Sermon is active? Like, they're gonna give him 80% of the snaps, and if everyone thinks that, you won't see him in many lineups. But the whole thing is Sermon's gonna be active. Don't take what happened in the last game as a thing. He's only going to get 40% of the work. They're going to spread it out. The projections will reflect a 50% target share, snap share, and that goes down. And then I'm like, what happens if they just like what they saw and they just give him all the work? Right? Like what if, and what's the probability of that happening versus the ownership? Another player, I'm taking a look at the Gridiron IQ projections on Roto Grinders. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming, I want to hear what's people are going to say about KJ Osborne.
Oh yeah.
For the Vikings. Because they don't have Irv Smith and they don't really even have a second tight end. like he played I think like 90% of snaps as like the third wide receiver. He got a bunch of targets and stuff. Yeah, they're low quality. I mean, he's going to be the fourth option on the offense, but he's 3,300 facing Arizona. So like he only in here he only projects for 6.14 points, 1.86 point per dollar, which is essentially a less than 1% owned player, like in projections. Because I'm assuming, like, it's the game yesterday's. I always say yesterday. It's Sunday. These games they always run into each other. I was just watching football. It seems like it was yesterday. So in this case, are people that are inputting target and snap data in, not what like they're saying. Okay, we're not going to weigh Sunday's result much. Osborne is not that guy. Like that just it was a outlier thing. Well, maybe he's not. Maybe like in this case, based on this projection, I could see him barely being any owned, even though like from a recency bias perspective, a normal person would say, well, don't game log chase and right. Don't. It's like, well, why can't I when no one else is? Right? Because maybe that's the start of a trend.
Exactly. That's everything to me. That is it's Najee Harris, right? Sucked, but the ancillary data basically says that he should be projected well. On the opposite side, so people that's what my tweet was based around, this idea that I just keep seeing people saying, like, don't adjust your priors off of one game. Week 2 is such a big edge if you just kind of stick to the things that we know, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, kind of. Like in right, like you said, if everybody is sticking to their priors on Najee Harris, well, what if he's just really this inefficient of a back, right? Maybe he sucks, right? Like maybe he's Trent Richardson. Like I don't know, but like just because it's not just about like, oh, don't adjust your priors, don't overreact. It's what is the market doing with this newfound information that we have, right? People were excited for Irv Smith. Like he was an exciting like potential breakout tight end guy, and Tyler Conklin and Chris Herndon are not that. And so if now they're playing Arizona, right? We were just excited for Arizona's last game. All Arizona did was go and make you more excited for them moving forward. He had as many targets as Justin freaking Jefferson, and all like he was near Thielen for the league. Like those three guys, their whole passing game was those three guys. And so he's like do I have any idea what I feel about KJ Osborne right now? No, because no one did expect.
Right, and he could easily. The thing is, when you do things like that, he could easily next week play 12 slaps.
Yeah,
right. They could be like, we're going to go to Herndon is fine. We're going to play Herndon and Conklin in 2 tight end sets, and here you go, Osborne with some weird third down 3 wide receiver sets, and he ends up being what happened with Russell Gage in Atlanta, right? He ends up like he should be there, but he's not. That could easily happen because teams game plan for each individual. Like you can't just go by what you just saw. But if no one's going to go with what they just saw, I'm going to say, well, what happens? What happens if it's whatever the market is doing. I'm doing the opposite. It's like so it's not a matter of me saying don't trust small sample sizes. Small sample sizes are not invalid. They're just very volatile. The standard deviation is very high. So just like you said, whoever wins the Millie Maker week 1, I think is going to win the Millie Maker week 2. Like that could be that could be the best DFS player in the world that won last week. That has the highest chance of winning at 0.0001% versus the 0.5%. Like that type of thing. But it's still a sample size. So just like BVP, we say in baseball, we always bring it back to BVP because that's the top example of taking small sample sizes too much. People that say don't look at BVP don't say that it doesn't exist, that batters can't hit, that have predilections to hit certain pitchers. It's just that with the sample sizes we have for all the batters and all the pitchers, we don't know which ones they are. Like, so when we say G-Man Choi hits Garrett Cole very well, like that could be absolutely true or it could be an aberration. But if the market is going to treat it as it's true, then play it as if it's an aberration. But if the market is going to treat, the guy that's, this guy is 0 for 24 with no home runs off of this guy, Like, well, that's no reason to change any decision you make anyway. So if the market is like, I can't possibly play that guy, and he's going to be 1% owned when he should be 5% owned, then you play it as if it's an aberration. Just that the sample size makes your decision, makes the range of outcomes to be not trustworthy. But your goal isn't to play the most trustworthy plays. Your goal is to just play the most inefficiently owned plays in comparison to the market.
Right. And it's because you're trying to get paid off, right? I'm trying to finish first in this tournament. And when we have, so like, God, I can't believe we turned this into the KJ Osborne thing, right? But like we have this thing we now seen of KJ Osborne as maybe like who, if last week is true, maybe he's the best value play on the whole slate.
And Eric, I just want to bring it up. Maybe he ends up being talked up. I mean, maybe right. It moves. But what's going to happen is the point that I'm making is that, like you said about Tim Patrick. Now, Tim Patrick next week is what? This is 4,600 because he's a little bit expensive. But do you know how much talk there's probably going to be about Cedric Wilson?
Oh yeah,
right. Cedric with Gallup Wilson. Out, So what's going to end up happening is like Cedric Wilson is what, 3,100, right? And he's going to be the $3,100, wide receiver play du jour. And it's like, well, why don't I just play KJ Osborne at 3,300 at like 15 times less ownership? What the hell's the difference? I mean, like, you're playing the third receiver from an offense anyway, unless you're pairing him with Dak Prescott or something. That's what I mean by look at Jalen Waddle this past week, right? Jalen Waddle. If I go to Results DB, Waddle was 1.42% in the Game Changer. He was like the same price as Marcus Callaway or anything like that.
Yep.
But there was so much more uncertainty about the Dolphins. They had a low team total with Tua at quarterback. But there's no reason why Callaway's 27% owned and Waddle's 1% owned. Elijah Moore's 31%. Like the differences are not that dramatic. So like it's not about KJ Osborne. It's about, well, how come the field is overreacting so much to Cedric Wilson when KJ Osborne, like this past week, had the same target share on his team as like CeeDee Lamb would have on the Cowboys, right? And people, they'll dismiss. What'll end up happening is they'll dismiss. Oh, Osborne can't do that again. But they'll just go Cedric Wilson, who's never done it. They'll have okay, he's obviously going to be walking into Gallup. He's going to be Michael Gallup this week, like. Who says maybe they run Jarwin and Schultz more, and who knows? Maybe you saw Pollard on the field with Zeke Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Pollard gets more run as kind of a slot guy, kind of a jet sweep type of thing. You don't know. And then Cedric Wilson's 22% owned, and it's the second quarter, and it's where's Martavis Bryant, right?
Yeah. And the other thing is that I think this is probably the part that people miss the most is, you could be right that Cedric Wilson is just now Michael Gallup, right? It's just those three wide receivers. They're playing every snap, and he could still not get there.
Right. Let's say he plays every snap, gets 2 catches for 30 yards, and that's it. It's just like,
right.
Okay.
Because shocker, he's like the sixth weapon on the offense that has CeeDee Lamb and Amari and Zeke and Pollard and whatever. So like there's all these paths to this failure that people don't take into account. And then now I'm looking at some of this, and it's really kind of wild. Like, it all goes back to, again, just like keep reiterating. It's like, is the market reacting to something or not reacting, or how are they treating all these situations as it relates to like how certain they are? And the spoiler alert, they're like all not certain at all. So that's why we're talking, in these terms. But it's like Elijah Moore, 30% last week. We're done with him. Like he's
right.
Playing
he may be 2% down for no reason.
Yeah. He's 3,500. He got a $500 price raise. He was the absolute stone cold chalk last week, and now he's in a bad matchup, right? Which actually I would argue like the Panthers were not a very. I think their defense is pretty good too. Like, but he's in a bad matchup. The Jets look shitty. and he only got 4 targets last week. So, okay, we're done with Elijah Moore now. Last week, he was the best play of the slate. This week, he's up only $500.
Well, Crowder may be back, so it may be a little bit different.
Yeah. But, like, he was playing outside. Berrios was tied for the lead in targets on the team playing in the slot. But it's like the same thing. Okay, now everybody's gonna go to Tim Patrick. Well, Cortland Sutton is the same price as Tim Patrick.
Noah Fant at tight end. Why not? Why aren't we playing $4,200 Noah Fant then?
Why does it have to be the guy that came right? And so anyway, these are just examples of the situations where we think, as of right now, at least, the market is going to react in a certain way, when in reality, there's all these other ways that this thing could play out, right? KJ Osborne could go back to being dust because that's what we thought he was going to be coming into the year. Or maybe he's like a real third target on this offense that we're probably going to be excited about on Sunday. Maybe Tim Patrick does step in and he's the man, right? He just takes over for Jerry Jeudy. Maybe he leads the team in targets. I don't know. But it could absolutely be KJ Hamler or Noah Fant or Cortland Sutton or whatever. And so just like figuring out which way the market is treating those things, I just want to do the opposite.
Right. Maybe Jamar Chase only gets 2 targets next week. I mean, maybe
he does drop the ball. What if he drops? Maybe he's feeling all cocky now because he caught some passes, and now he's gonna drop the ball in week 2, and he's the best. He's the best point per dollar projection that we have right now.
And maybe Devontae Smith, only gets 2 targets, and Kez Watkins has 2. I mean, it's gonna be one of those things that people are gonna overreact. It's not about the overreaction or underreaction. It's the scale in which that happens.
Yeah.
And then you're essentially arbitraging the middle of that.
Yep.
Right? So if people, you don't know what you're going to do. This is the whole point of why are you looking at stuff on Tuesday? Dude, I need to know what everyone else is going to do first, because that's projecting the players to me is the easy part. Right? Because it's a range of outcomes. You're not projecting exact outcomes, so you just give me the range of outcomes, right? The range of outcomes difference between Cedric Wilson and KJ Osborne. Cedric Wilson's going to have a better one. It's going to be a little bit further over. But still, there's going to be tons of overlap. That overlap range is going to be enough that the parts that don't overlap is the ownership relative to that, right? So if the parts overlap by this much, the ownership difference should be this much, right? But what ends up happening in DFS is that it overlaps by just this much, and the ownership is 5 or 6 times different. And then you go what? Why? What I try to do to people, I've done it in some Skype coaching sessions, which I don't do coaching. If you bought the course, sometimes I've sent out thank you for buying, and you get a free if you want me to talk to you type of thing to give back. I've tried to draw out. I did it in paper first, and I did it in Photoshop of. I took all the 8K guys, the 6 to more the 7 to 8K guys on a slate, and drew out to scale from 0 to 25 or whatever on their range of outcomes.
Yeah.
And then put their floor and ceiling projections in. So use the blitz or whatever, and then show how the lines are. And then I took the piece of paper, I printed it out, and I walked back. So the camera, you could only see from this thing and go, can you tell me the difference between the lines? Right? Yes, if I make it closer, you could see that some are slightly higher or whatever. But once I scale back enough, you could tell that the bottom ones are a little bit off. But in the middle, it's here, I've shown you 12 players, and 3 of these guys are going to be 20% owned, and 3 of these guys are going to be 2% owned. I mean, so you see that, yes, the medians for these are higher by a point, by a point and a half even. But the range of outcomes is show me where all these guys could score 35 points. So that's what you could do at the 3K range with the Callaways and the Moores. You could have done the same exact thing and go, how often does this player score 12 points? And the arbitrage between the bat probability and their ownership is just so dramatically off that why let's just get back to the beginning. Why does it, if the market is so bad at efficiently projecting exact outcomes, which is what they're trying to do, why are we trying to even care? What it's what it's. I know you get it because you've been blenderized, right? I mean, you got it before anyway, but it it's almost weird to say. I don't understand how you don't get, like, we're not trying to predict outcomes at all, like literally at all. What do you think's gonna? I have no idea, nor do I care. And then people just had their heads explode and go, then what? It's like, all I need is a range of outcomes and an ownership, and just like put together plus EV lineups based on that. You back test the model to make sure that, obviously you're accurate enough on these range of outcomes. But the range of outcomes is so fucking wide that, like, what am I gaining by going into the PFF data from, what? Like, it's not going to matter. You saw my tweet thread. Am I? If for most people that don't play seriously, that aren't professionals or don't play seriously, do you believe it sounds weird to say, I think it's true. My last tweet of a thread I did yesterday, if you didn't do anything all week, woke up Sunday morning at 11:30, right? Have no clue who's playing, what the totals are. You literally have never looked. You have not looked at the slate whatsoever. 11:30 Eastern, inactives come out. If you just looked at, you didn't even look at projections. Like, you're not even looking at that, and you just go to the betting lines and go, what are the high total games? Okay, we got Kansas City, Cleveland. We got Arizona, Tennessee. We got Seattle, Indianapolis. We got, like, the top 6 or whatever, right? Just like out of the 30, the top half. And you just said, okay, I want a quarterback and 2 pass catchers and 1 from the opposing team. And then I want to correlate maybe another, like, opposing wide receiver correlation. Maybe a running back defense, but that's not even needed. And then just a one-off running back. And other than the top 5, maybe 4 to 6 games, and you just threw out all the other ones. Like, you literally did not even care about them. And you just said, how do I spend $50,000 in salary, right? You just go, I'm going to play, I'll see if I can fit in Mahomes and Kelsey, because that's that game, and put in Landry in that lineup. And then I'm going to go to the Falcons-Eagles game, and I'm going to go, I'll put in probably can't play Calvin Ridley in that lineup. You're going to play Devonta Smith, Mike Davis, and you take 2 guys from there, and then you go, okay, what can I take for? And, like, dude, like, would your lineups be any better or worse than putting in 30 hours of work throughout the week?
No, they would probably be better, because I find this too. Every Sunday morning, I'm trying. I actually don't do hardly any, like, tinkering and stuff on Sunday mornings at all. Now, this Sunday was a little bit of a peculiar one because we had the, Sermon and Zach Moss and Odell and all that kind of stuff. But I've started to do that more, where I'm just kind of reading the market on Sunday mornings, and if I think something has drastically changed, I might tinker things around. But pretty much by Saturday, or sometime on Saturday, usually I'm like, all right, I know what the market is going to do, and it basically is that process. I have narrowed down, a subset of the games and a subset of running backs, right, and a subset of defenses, and then I just kind of start, like, I have this, it's almost like if I wrote down this, here's the 4 running backs I like, here's the 4 games I like, and here's the 4 defenses I like, and then you just start kind of, I literally pretty much just start, like, clicking through and, like, okay, how does this fit? How can I fit different things together?
I do that sometimes with Lineup HQ, where I'll just eliminate. I do that Saturday night. I go, what games do I want to play, and then remove everyone else from the player pool, and then it's just like build 150 lineups and let me see what's available. And so I don't have to go back and forth. But the point that I'm making is that what we do, obviously looking at projections, looking at ownership, it's on top of that is much better. Right? So you could see, well, you need a one-off running back from one of these teams. Well, who's the most valuable? I mean, like, putting your lineup together, looking at ownership, you go, I'm going to play guys like this, and you end up with such a low-owned lineup or such a high-owned lineup. Like, I didn't say that that's the best way of doing so. I'm just saying that tweet was more towards the people that email me and say, like, can you explain, like, what you do throughout the week for your research, because or the people that I have a 9 to 5 job, I don't have the time to do everything like you do, or those types of people that on Tuesday are poring over data, watching film. Wednesday they're reading this. They're spending, and some of that is fun. If you're doing it for fun, God bless you. That's fine. Do it. I'm talking about just if you want to get better at playing the game of DFS. The number one thing that's the most correlative in NFL is team totals. So like if you just looked at team totals and showed up Sunday morning and built lineups with, you're correlating just to make it easier on yourself. So you don't even have to do one, even if you don't know that, even if you don't know ownership at all. Like, I believe that for the people that have not grasped the game theory of DFS, that if just by default, if I forced you to say, I don't want you to look at anything until 11:30 in the morning on Sunday. I want you to tell me what the top team totals are. And as long as you know who's starting, right? You're not starting an injured player or something like that. Put together lineups at 50,000 and have the top 5 games in it. We're running back from that game. Get a wide receiver from this game. And if you want to correlate to make it easier on yourself. I believe that you would be building better GPP lineups. This is not for cash, obviously. You'd be building better GPP lineups just doing it that way without understanding any of the game theory aspects of DFS than trying to find the wide receiver cornerback matchup or any of the other crap. And it sounds like what it does sound like, because obviously we both do content. It's like, well, so you tell like what then you're at Roto Grinders, like, so I shouldn't be reading all that stuff. I go, you should be reading all this stuff if you want to be explain what the projections are, right? That's how I view it. If you don't feel comfortable with the projections because you feel like you're just like, oh, I don't want it just a number. They go like, why is that guy projected that way? Why is that? That to me, that's where all the information is. And then obviously strategy-based articles where it's not based around who's good. It's based around on, like we said, who's lower owned than the market. What are better ways to get different, right? There are tons of articles like that. That's fine. But for the actual plays type of things, I strongly believe that if you didn't listen to anything and just showed up Sunday morning and did what I said, over the course of an 18-week season, I think you'd have better results.
100%. And then, then it becomes it starts that's just like roster construction, right? Understanding how to build the right kinds of lineups, right? And then you as you that, like you said, I don't know if you could win just doing that, but certainly more than what I see a lot of people, doing and talking about, and even some people like that I might respect or whatever, that things that they're putting into play in their lineups are not necessarily even helping them, even if they think that they're, predicting things better. I think it's arguable that they're actually hurting themselves just strictly from a DFS tournament perspective. But then when you start to become good, and I'm not even saying that I'm good, but any success that I've had is because I took the time to spend understanding that roster construction part, right? It's like I understand, okay, here's the games that I like, and here's how I would build teams in order to capitalize on that. That scenario playing out in which, that is right. And then it's basically like just a couple of other things. We talked about the market thing. I spend all my time, because I know I could build the correlated lineup in 30 seconds or whatever on Sunday morning. I spend my entire time basically now looking at what the market is doing. I consume the content solely because I want to know, who are people listening to, right? What's Silva saying? What's Levitan saying? What's Reeves saying? What are the PFF guys saying? What are all these guys saying? What is all the content talking about, right? In terms of how people are reacting, like we talked about on this entire show. And then I will look at some data stuff myself solely to match it up to that market thing. Okay, maybe there's something, or it's not even like that I'm necessarily maybe somebody else is doing the research and I'm just reading what they wrote. And it's just like, okay, so-and-so also played, again, the example that doesn't exist, like I talked about earlier. Everybody's going to latch onto this Najee Harris thing, but maybe there's another guy that's very similar, but we're not, the market isn't doing that. And maybe it's not in the projections like you talked about, Everybody's going to now project Najee Harris for 100% of snaps. Maybe another guy, maybe KJ Osborne should project for X target share, but it's not going to be in those projections. Understanding that kind of stuff, because it all goes back to, I'm just trying to see what my opponents are doing, right? Because we've done the roster construction thing. I'm not trying to, tell me who's the best pass blocking running back in the league. I'm just trying to understand, the overall market dynamics. And I do think there's a little bit to understanding, like we all do this, but understanding the kind of projection that Derrick Henry is versus the kind of projection that Christian McCaffrey is, right? Just in terms of how they get to their projection. That's maybe even more important in NFL than other sports, just because of how game script can dictate things. But those are just really small nuances, and those don't even make that big of a deal.
Right. I also believe that a lot of people think that they expect immediate regression.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of those Najee Harris. 30-point game. Right. I mean, like immediate regret. Like, dude, he was just unlucky. Or we get some games where the running back is that you have is like stuffed 6 times at the goal line. Right. And it's like, dude, he should have had 3 touchdowns, but he had 0. And then obviously. Now, we see that in baseball. Oh, baseball, that happens all the time, right? So, someone has a bad game, and it's like, nope. That means they're going to make it up with a 16 strikeout game, like the next game. No, it does. That's not how it works, right? Yep. So those types of things where it's like the underlying metrics, right? The snap share, the target share, the red zone usage, all that type of stuff, which is built into projections. Maybe over the course of an 18-game season, it does regress to the mean. But it doesn't mean it has to come all the way in one fucking game, right? Deebo Samuel, okay, he can't do that again. It's like, well, who says, right? Now for the next 16 games, maybe he doesn't do that, but it could happen twice in a row. Regression doesn't just show up like that. I stacked against Adam Plutko for an entire season in baseball. Seeing the underlying metrics going, at some point he's giving up 6 home runs in one game, because this fly ball home run rate cannot be sustainable with how he pitches with a 6 xFIP. And it's like, okay, next game. And then you just constantly look and see 390-foot fly ball out, 390-foot fly ball. And just he gave up 2 hits. And when is he going to get, because he doesn't strike anyone out. So, and then obviously the time that he gets blown up, I'm on the fucking Hawaiian cruise and I couldn't benefit from it. But I'm thinking long term when I'm doing things like that. I know that I'm not going in expecting the next game. All I know is that the underlying stats say that at some point his superficial statistics are going to match his underlying statistics. So I just want to be able to benefit from that no matter what week it is.
Right.
And so many other people are more willing to, are less willing to do so and more willing to say, I'm going to jump on board. Eric, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to predict an exact outcome. Or I think it's funny. Not everyone's going to play Najee Harris on Sunday. He's going to get 6 points again with 100% of the snaps. And then the week afterwards, he's going to be 8% owned, and I play him, and he gets 35 points. Because they're going to jump off and go, oh, I guess they're going to go, this camp, week 1, it's going to be, this isn't the new normal. Week 2, it happens again, this is the new normal. Week 3, you get all of that regression back in 1 week, and no one plays him.
What will really make him, 5% owned in the following week is if, like you talked about, Benny Snell does play. 25 or to 20.
Or no. If they play Tampa Bay or if they play a good rushing, quote unquote, rushing defense, right?
Yes. That's actually what Kyle Pitts has got going for him this week is they get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I mean, these are just such perfect examples of all these things, right? The regression thing, the under or overreacting, what's in the projections, all these little things that just kind of summarize to me how little we know about any of this stuff, because like you said, week to week, especially in NFL, by the end of a baseball season, maybe we have a little bit better idea, but even then, they got guys that have been in AAA all year and we still don't know, but we just really don't know anything. And so I keep trying to like you can have opinions. I played the Panthers not just because they were like leverage is great, but like leverage that doesn't have the requisite upside to win you anything. It's kind of like cutting off your nose to spite your face. Jimmy G, right? In theory, you could say Jimmy G to George Kittle was a leverage play off of Mostert. It kind of did end up becoming that, but we talked about why Jimmy G actually was kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face. But like I played the Panthers passing game because it was part of my belief that like the market was wrong on them. Right now, soon this season, we're going to kind of know what all these teams are. And then it really will pretty much just become like leverage and game theory. But even right now, like it's totally fine to have, like if you have a take, like I know you don't have those, but like it's totally fine if someone wants to say, I believe in X offense or whatever. I think that the market is wrong on them. Great. But like, that can't be everything. You can't be like, I know I'm right about this offense. I know that this outcome is going to happen. It is so much more about this other stuff. And like, I even come to realize that more and more, like I did tons of like all this best ball stuff. So you're talking about football every day for months or whatever, you get attached to names, right? That's just how it goes. But, making sure that's what's helpful to like do the Sunday show with Gretch or talk to people like you or whatever, that keeps everybody's mind fresh on like what we're really trying to accomplish here. And so then on Sunday, right, like you said, if everybody's going to pile on Najee Harris, like, okay, I agree that he's probably going to bounce back to the regression thing, but that doesn't mean he could bounce back and score 16 fantasy points. Like
right,
that,
and not be in the winning lineup.
He'd
He'd be fine. He could be there.
Yeah. It's just that like there's so much more important stuff. And so I was already seeing, on top of I probably could recite everybody's snap counts based on my Twitter feed because
how about the air yards? Do you have everyone's air yards?
Not yet, but give me a few hours and I'll probably have the air yards figured out. And people don't like when you joke about that kind of stuff too. I was just like making a joke, like Jesus Christ, everybody could go look up snap counts if they really wanted to. But I think I'm just scrolling snap count. And people don't like it when you make fun of.
No, I think it's more of a lot of people do it.
Like so many.
It's more of a joke about your own feed than for the other. Because I did a vote poll like that because it's not. Like, I don't mind saying, oh, so-and-so had a Snapchat, whatever. It's just that I'm following 20 people that are also doing the same exact thing.
And now people do it like Nathan, I don't know how to say his last name, Jonky or something. He's from PFF. He's live tweeting it during games, which actually I also find interesting. So like I like that he's doing it. But now it's like, okay, all game I'm like even during the games my Twitter feed is snap counts, and then the next morning, and then the next afternoon, and everybody's posting it. And sometimes they're applying context, and sometimes they're not. So it's just
they're
fun,
chasing engagement. That's
yeah.
I mean that's.
As someone who also does their own engagement farming, I can appreciate somebody, people chasing some engagement. There's a reason why, like, I make fun of running backs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot more threads now. I learned that from Joe Holka.
Yeah, Joe Holka.
Joe Holka has threads inside of thread. It's the Inception. His stuff is like
Twitter Inception.
Right. I think all of his tweets are tied to each other. I think to some extent.
I know. What's the meme or the GIF of Charlie from Always Sunny where he's got all the on the board of the conspiracy theory? That's Joe's like room.
No, because there's a lot of things I don't like writing articles or anything, and I have thoughts about whatever, and people may not be watching shows, and I'm like, let me point something out, but you only get 280 characters, so you can't put anything in there. So it's like, okay, here's what would normally be like a 500-word blog post. Yeah. But I'm just doing it in Twitter threads and putting screenshots or something like that. And hopefully people could learn from that if they're not, seeing me, bitch and moan on shows and yell, play whoever you want.
And I like it. Like, I think people, everybody has their own Twitter experience, but I feel like so many people just like assume the other person is either an idiot on the opposite end, right? They're doom scrolling and they're like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, so I'm going to tell him why he's wrong. Like I post so many things and people are like replying with like, well, yeah, so-and-so, like I posted something about like Josh Jacobs and stuff. And they're like, well, Josh Jacobs, he got dinged up. I'm like, no shit. I watched like, I know you don't have to tell, you don't have to correct me. Like I know these things. But then the other thing is I think people think the other person has like a ill intent with whatever it is that they're saying, you know, like, or like I'm trying to like sound like this super smart guy or whatever. Like,
Right.
I
Well,
don't
that's
think
what
I'm that smart.
that's
That's
what
everybody
everyone
thinks, like
says about
you're
me.
being an asshole. Yeah, like you think that
People
you're
think
like trying.
you're no. I get YouTube comments every once in a while, like this show would be so much better if it wasn't for the know-it-all asshole. I'm like, what? I'm just a New Yorker. I mean,
Yeah, right.
like if you know me, like I remember Ben Pritchett had a tweet like long time ago, uh, saying that like I'm endearing, like because we went to a soccer game together, and he's like I'm the most endearing, like if you don't know him, like he's someone that has no problem talking to anyone and sharing everything that he knows. Like there's nothing hidden and just enjoy talking about it. So it may come across as like,
Right.
oh, there's this know-it-all asshole blunt or whatever. It's like that's just me being a New Yorker, and it's also me like, no, I literally like if you don't know this, I want to teach you, and if you have questions, I have no problem answering. But like I'm not doing this to say, oh, look at me, I'm so much smarter than everyone. It's like no, it's like here's stuff that people don't read, maybe they don't read, and debate and go, I don't think so because of
Yeah.
that. Okay, I'm fine. I'm
And
fine with that also. But it's like the other tweets are the ones that I'm making fun of people. I mean, when you put in
yeah,
gifs
of
and
course.
imagine this and I mean the only bad tweet that deserves to be ridiculed is that plastic straws. Paper straws are worse than plastic straws. Anything past about 2 minutes, paper straws turn into like, well, you don't want to put your mouth on that.
That's Adam. Adam is being an asshole, and he is absolutely engagement farming with that one too. I don't know where that one came from. I can't co-sign that one. But I think like yeah, it's and my big thing is like I'm not even like necessarily trying to say that I'm right about anything. Like this is my Twitter experience. I'm like I said, this is my random musing on a Tuesday morning, right? As that we talked about some of the things that I mentioned, like in a couple of tweets. I'm just posting whatever crazy shit comes to my mind. There's tons of shit that I've posted on Twitter over the last years, but definitely over the last 4 or 5 months that like my opinion has changed on, and some of that's because people reply like, well, no, I think this or whatever, and I'm like, no, that makes sense. You know what I
Old
mean?
takes exposed. Old
Yeah,
takes
yeah,
exposed.
but like I'm willing to be wrong. I'm not trying to like lecture or whatever. I'm like, here's what I'm thinking. Maybe you think something different. Maybe you agree. Whatever. I don't care. I think that's more of a fun Twitter experience. But everybody just assumes that like, oh, look at him. He thinks he's smarter than everybody. Or like everybody has a weird. Twitter is a bizarre place. It's either people telling you how stupid you are, or people, even if they don't tell you, they're like, oh, this guy's just a fucking asshole. He thinks he's super smart.
Or it's the opposite. Sometimes it ends up being too much yes
I love that
men.
too. Yeah.
Right. It's too much of a love fest over certain things, especially calls and takes and stuff. That's because the way I play, I don't. Anyone that says, "Oh, look, I got a couple of takes right," is like, "How much money did you win?" Oh no, I lost. Okay, so who gives a fuck, right? Like I have a Twitter guy on the last episode with JM to win that apparently someone that, since I don't love football, like no one should support the podcast or the course. Or there are plenty of other people that know what they're talking about that also love football. So me not watching the games, which I do watch the games, but not to research it or anything. But that's the type. To me, that's the type of stuff where I'm like, dude, like what you like. The thing is that I know the psychology of those types of people because I could be that type of person, right? That said, oh, there's something wrong on the internet, I have to fix it, right? Type of like, oh, I feel like yelling at this guy, but I want to make myself feel better by saying something, and I've tried to basically not do that as much anymore. So I know the other side of to me, the longer they reply, the less likely I respond. Right, because all they want is they want the response to the guy that on the YouTube chat or whatever YouTube comment that's like you don't love football and blah blah, why should we listen to you and yippee doo dah day. I'm like I my goal is to make money. Like that's that's like
Yep.
because that's what if you want to learn how to make money and you want to play like I do, That's what it is. As far as like football, I don't care. It's like, so if you decide to like, oh, I'm not gonna, I don't like it because you don't like football, then fine. Why'd you have to write 700 paragraphs? I mean, like, you reply to each one. So I just like, dude, like I'm secure enough. I'm not insecure to have to respond to every one a paragraph's worth of comments. It's just like I'll let you just speak into the void. I'll mute you on Twitter. I'll block you or whatever. Typically,
Right.
I only block Eric. I only block because I keep Twitter notifications on for replies.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not gonna. If you're gonna be an asshole and reply 4 times to the same, like then you blocked, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not a mute. It's not just like dude. Like I'm not gonna like a lot of times even when I subtweet, I purposely do it so I don't want to bother because I'm doing it as a joke a lot of times anyway. So it's like I don't want to have him tagged and then people respond back to that and then their phone is going fucking off. It's like it was a joke to begin with. It's not something that they should be bothered. I don't mind being bothered with, but I don't. Is this too detailed into Twitter engagement?
Nothing is ever too detailed into Twitter engagement. It's a shit show of a space. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like with DFS. Like,
don't take it so seriously.
Don't take it so seriously. We're just trying to have fun. Like we're trying to make money and have fun. That's all I really care about. I'm approaching my mid-30s. I'm not getting any younger. I'm just trying to make as much money as I can and have as much fun as I can. The end of discussion. You don't have to correct everything that I say that I'm wrong about. You can try and quote tweet me and dunk on me all you want. If it makes you feel better, go for it. But we're all just trying to have fun and make some money.
Someone respond to my poll tweets from Friday about the leverage plays, saying, "Oh, you're just doing this so you could figure out who people are playing." So, like, dude, like number one, there's like the 671 replies. Like, I'm not affecting ownership, and also based on the responses on the polls, I don't think my followers are all that smart to begin with. So like, it's not gonna matter that much when I try to make those questions as easy. Eric, don't I make those questions like almost too easy?
It's so blatantly obvious. I do get a good chuckle out of them.
Like so I always come back and because people will respond back. Oh, it's this because of this and that because of this, and it's like dude, who are the highest owned players on the slate and who's negatively correlated to them? That's the answer. End of story. Like there's nothing. Like I'm doing it on purpose like that. So no, there's no nuance of like, well, it could be. I'm purposely putting in other wide receivers that, like, yes, like this wide receiver has like no one's playing this game. Like Devontae Parker is not the answer to the leverage question. I have to fathom that the people that were responding wrong are just people that don't know the ownership. Because I got that last year also. Like I got responses last year because some new people thought because people would respond, I think it's this because of X, because this guy's they're applying the concept correctly, but they're like, because so and so is going to be chalky, so it's going to be this guy, and it's like the guy they're talking about is projected to be 3% owned. So I'm like how do you figure that so and so is going to be chalky? Well, because of the matchup, this and that, and that's like dude, he's not going to be owned. Like so like oh no, it's this guy because so and so is going to be 18% owned. Like no, he's going to be like 4% owned. Like how are you that off? On like dude, I picked the 3 guys that are against the guys that are going to be 25% owned. Like yes, it's whoever's negatively correlated to Marcus Callaway and Kyle Pitts and Marvin Jones and Christian McCaffrey. Like it's not rockets, and it also, what does it help me? Like it doesn't help. Like how could it? Like I'm just. It's literally the answer to the question. Russell Gage obviously did not do well, right? But he was obviously negatively correlated to if Kyle Pitts is going to be chalky and Ridley's going to be chalky and Mike Davis is going to be chalky and Matt Ryan will get a little bit of ownership. It's like, well, who's the guy out that could have? Well, Russell Gage. That does. And now if 90% of people responded to Russell Gage, like how does that affect me? Like now I've moved up the needle on Russell Gage, so now I play more Kyle Pitts. Like how does that work?
Oh, man,
my polls don't move the market.
No.
Nor would move the market in the direction I would want. If anything, I would not make the question at all and just play Russell Gage at 0.8% ownership.
Exactly.
Right. Like I'm actually hurting myself, if anything. Okay. No best ball screenshots for you? Week 1 best ball
No,
screenshots? You're not into that?
no, no.
Victory lapping the first week? No?
Yeah,
Latavius
there's
Murray,
lots.
you may get bailed out on that.
I will victory lap. This is exactly how I predicted it, by the way. The guy I was drafting in the 12th round was going to be so bad that he gets cut by the team that I drafted him for. And then he's going to go, and then not one, not two, but 3 running backs on the best running team in the NFL are going to get injured in the preseason, and he's going to step into that role. And then the rookie, or the Tyson Williams in front of him is going to. So speaking about trying to predict outcomes, good luck with that one. But
Right.
no best ball screenshots for me. But we are, best ball season is still alive and well. These sites are not giving me any time off because NBA has been launched and NHL has been launched already. So I'm figuring out how to fit that into NFL season. So it's fun. It's fun times. I am enjoying it, actually.
Right, and I got soccer coming up, and then MMA I play on Saturdays, so it's all busy all the time. So Erik Beimfohr on Twitter, if you want his musings, his nihilistic musings, and Twitter threads, and my stuff also at Blender HD. And as always, you get the theory of daily fantasy sports. It's 15-hour audio DFS masterclass at theoryofdfs.com.